Yes, welcome everyone to the second session in our expert series. There's been a little bit of a delay since the previous one, but we are good to go and yeah, getting started with getting some useful and insightful expert knowledge. With me today is, if I press the button, there we go. With me today is Phil from Hughes IT Support, come to discuss with me about well, media production and Synology within media production, and also a bit more about kind of how Hughes IT kind of fits in with all that. So I guess I will hand it over to you just to do a bit of an explanation of yeah, what Hughes IT does.
Good morning all. Basically, we run an independent IT support company. We support Mac and PC users, and we try and find the best solutions for our clients, not only with Macs and PCs, but also the server infrastructures and the storage they need to suit the different tasks they do. We work with small design companies, large design companies, and educational establishments. So we have a broad gamut of companies we've supported, and we've been doing it for many years. I started originally in the print industry, worked with the big pre-press systems, and then started about 20 odd years ago with my own support company, and it just sort of grew from there.
Cool. So yeah, I guess let's kind of get jumping into the questions that we've got. We've got a bit of a couple of questions to keep us on track to make sure we're not rambling too much.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, so I guess kind of the first bit to kind of start with is like how does Synology and Hughes IT kind of fit together? And so yeah, what I mean by that is how does both yourself and your customers utilize Synology, yeah.
Okay, so in the far and distant past, a lot of people had computed to the power of one. So you'd have had small design agencies with 2 or 3 members of staff, and they would have had a range of direct storage attachments to their computers, and everything worked fine until projects got bigger and bigger and file sizes got bigger and bigger. And then Apple, from the Apple perspective, they brought out products like Apple Server, and Apple even dabbled with rack-mounted storage devices. And
yeah, and I remember seeing bits and pieces.
Yeah, and ironically, Trailfinders, as you know, I'm under contract with Trailfinders. When we installed the new units this year, in the rack, I actually had to take out one of the old Apple Server rack to make space for the new Synology, and that just sat in that rack over 10 years doing nothing. It was completely redundant. But with our Synology experience, we started small scale 4 bay units for clients, and it just centralized storage, but also people became aware of hard drives fail.
Yeah.
And back in our offices, I've got a cupboard full of failed hard drives. So people
not hoarding much then.
No, it's just So and the question is when disks fail or crash, people go, oh, I don't want to throw it away. There's always that just in case, case. So we've ended up storing them. But with NAS devices, there was a hardware data protection element that people grew aware of. And as your company's grown and units got bigger and bigger, some of our clients' aspirations and can we do this with NAS devices? So besides storing, image files, InDesign files, EPS files, it's now more video content, every kind of content, and also as people's file systems have got bigger, how do you manage all that data?
Yeah, no, cool. And actually, just so we're kind of aware of kind of the size that Hughes IT is, how many kind of customers do you have, and what kind of what sizes are they?
They can, to be fair, it can, from the smallest scale, it can be. We've got some guys who retired. They had very high-powered jobs. They now work. They work in their retirement, and they might have all of their decades worth of family photos, or they'll have family videos, and they've accumulated them over years on different devices. So again, we've centralized that. So people who are retired or work from home on 2 and 4 bay units, mid-sized design companies from 4 to 6 employees, up to much bigger, where they have 50 or 60 designers. In London, we deal with a company that they were specialists in on social media marketing.
Yeah.
So, and they just grew and grew. When I started working with them, they started with, I think, 15 full-time employees, and within 2.5 years, they're up at 50, and an office in New York. And and at that point, when they had 15, they had no server, no NAS device. So people were just swapping files, and it was all which version's the correct version.
Yeah.
So there's an aspect, again, NAS, and in a way, NAS has replaced the need for servers.
Yeah.
Because so much has now moved to cloud, Microsoft SharePoint. With Apple now, you have MDMs to control the devices. So NAS is a perfect centralized storage mechanism, and the fact you can also have your own purpose cloud.
Yeah.
Because the other complexity is people, when they have a subscription to Apple iCloud or have an Office 365 or a G Drive account, they'll have chunks of data in all of those three.
Yeah.
So again, when we're called in to consult with people, we look at all of their different collectives of storage and say, okay, if we put a NAS box in here, you can centralize the storage, but we can also cherry pick which cloud services give you the best value for money and work for your company, your enterprise.
Yeah. Just kind of to add on to what you've just been saying, well, I've started coining the term NAS is no longer network attached storage. NAS, in Synology's case, is a network appliance server.
Yeah, I agree.
Because there's so much more that you can do to it than just store stuff.
Very much so. Yeah.
There's so much, with mail servers and with personal clouds, and it's quite impressive, isn't it?
I mean, one of the schools we dealt with, and because we also work alongside other IT companies, where a company has a speciality in one sector, we've over the years built up contacts, and that's how we got into education in the first place. One of our clients knew we were Mac guys, and in one of the colleges over in Aylesbury, they had one classroom with 30 Macs, and they were all running on boot camp. But they had a new teacher come in who wanted to teach them Adobe Creative Cloud, so they had to revert back to being Macs again. And during that process, we got to work with this other IT company, and one of the primary schools they worked with wanted a DNS server. So they ended up buying a Synology just as a DNS server, and it worked brilliantly. And he said the cost savings, rather than having to pay Microsoft for a server structure, the DNS thing was fantastic, along with the NAS storage as well. Yeah,
it does make sense when you kind of look at it in terms of the other solutions that are out there.
Very much so.
And also kind of how are the systems that you work with, are they managed? Are they managed by you, or are they managed internally and you support, or is it kind of a combination of everything?
We have support contracts for larger clients, so we monitor and look after their NAS devices, the Macs, the PCs. Other clients just want us on an ad hoc basis, but if it's a business and it's running 5 days a week, sometimes in all our businesses they run 24/7. They want a support contract. And we manage the whole thing. So we just dial in. We also take care of remote backups. So as you know, the job we did at Trailfinders, they have 2 units. One is the active one, and one is the sort of the passive one. So they have complete disaster recovery if needed.
Cool. And so your support contracts that you offer, how fast are you responding if someone phones you up in the middle of the night? Is that...
I might get a phone call now. So not in the middle of the night, but from most times 8 o'clock in the morning to 8 o'clock at night.
Okay, that's cool.
So and in terms of backup, one of the classic things, when you deal with larger companies, if say you have 50 or 60 employees, one of the classics with Adobe software, and they're working on design files, I've just deleted the file, can I retrieve it? So Hyper Backup has been a godsend, because you can go back 20, 30 versions to get the version. And a lot of InDesign work, where it's designed for publishing, they'll work on files that have an historic backtrace. So they'll oh damn, I need the version from 6 months ago, because there's some changes have been made since then.
Yeah.
So again, we'd get calls, restore that file, put it back on the server for the next morning.
That's really cool.
Yeah,
that's really cool.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does sound good. And obviously, well, there are other solutions out there on the market. How do you kind of come to Synology as the solution that you kind of utilize?
Yeah, well, to be fair, you're right. There are. We're not Synology through and through. We look at other solutions always, because you've got to be fair to the client.
Yeah.
And it's got to fit the needs they have. So when we first started looking at NAS devices, believe it or not, we actually had Drobo installed at some of our clients. And that, from a PC perspective, worked well. But from the Mac perspective, it introduced things like iSCSI. So you have to have iSCSI emulators for the Mac. And Drobo was a very good product, but it wasn't quite ticking the boxes for a few clients. So then we looked, and then Synology came onto our radar. We investigated. I bought a test unit, and it worked really well. And then the other competition is QNAP, and we've worked with QNAP in the past. We've always found that the interface of Synology is really good compared to QNAP.
That, to be fair, that is the feedback we get quite a lot. Is the software and the actual way you use the Synology is
it's
so
more
much
polished.
Than,
QNAP has got all the bells and whistles. I think the analogy, when we looked at it, we did a media QNAP for an installation in London. I think, to be honest, at the time you didn't have a product that fitted the bill, because they had one with SSD RAID. I think it was one of their TVS range, and so it was a good spec build. But at that time, you just didn't have anything that was close. Things obviously changed now. But when we installed it, the QNAP interface just wasn't as slick as the interface for Synology.
And also, to be fair, with the upgrades that we've been making, it's the DSM-7 has moved the
DSM
interface on again, another load, isn't it?
I just didn't think DSM-7 was going to be as efficient, and even on smaller devices, faster. It's that struck me a lot, is the fact DSM-7 is so much better than 6. You had to sacrifice a few things, but 7 is definitely has been the way forward. The bigger the systems, I think DSM-7 makes even more of an impact. With there's a lot of features that are designed for like data centers and stuff like that DSM-6 never had, and it's really stepped the game on in terms of the enterprise kind of range. Just responsive, obviously, because as we have as a partner a Synology account, and all our devices are listed. Just the accessing it over the internet, dialing in remotely, the response time and how fast it loads. It's like, oh wow. So now we have a comparison of 6 and 7. 6 seems really sluggish now when we're accessing one remotely to sort of do any service work, any patching. And so 7's definitely been it's a godsend.
And 7.1 being released very recently has added a level. Have you had a chance to play with 7.1 yet?
No, not yet. Baby steps.
Oh, okay, fair enough. Well, I'll let you let you enjoy that one in the future.
It's a bit like an analogy is when Apple released a new OS. It's like one a year. And with our clients, we never get them to do an upgrade within the first 3 to 6 months. It's just asking for trouble.
And to be honest, there's a lot of people out there that are in that same boat. They need to have the most stable thing possible. And if that means using a build from 3 months ago, then so be it. But there's some good things.
7's very positive, so can't knock it.
Cool. And obviously, you do kind of setups and bits and pieces all the time with those different NAS. Are there any kind of obstacles or anything that you kind of have to get across when doing installations or setups of Synology systems, but also other systems integrating with Synologies?
If we're referring back to the Trailfinders job, that was a big project. And when we were migrating from units that were 6 years old up to the latest and greatest, huge benefit in speed and performance. it's that data migration.
Yes.
And,
yeah.
Um,
Remind me, how much storage were they migrating?
so that project, that was 25 terabytes.
Yeah.
And Matt, my business partner, who's, I'm the Mac guy, he's the PC guy. His normal data set for PC clients that he works with is 1 or 2 terabytes.
Yeah.
And I walk in the room, it's like 25, 36, 72 terabytes.
Yeah.
And he's just, but it's just, they're just numbers, but it's the migration and retaining all the permissions.
Yeah.
But the savior with the Trailfinders project, it's all 10 gig speed.
Yes.
So
to be honest, that is the big thing, isn't it?
It's huge. Yeah.
Yeah. In everything now, 10 gig is kind of.
Yeah, it's king. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the new Apple devices, they're all 10 gig Ethernet. And if you're in that production environment and you want to have centralized storage and you want your staff, designers, video editors working to and from a centralized database or assets, 10 gig is almost mandatory now.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was you that was telling me basically, or you're the one that's taught me that basically as soon as you hear the words Adobe in a specking out call, you just go 10 gig immediately, because isn't it? It's,
especially with Photoshop has always been one of our design clients when they had very good 1 gig switches. So we just had to use link aggregation. It gave us it allowed more people on to get decent connection, but the speed is never that great. So the analogy was, if you had 10 designers on 10 Macs or PCs talking to the Synology, with Photoshop and Illustrator files, they would link across the network, no problem at all. InDesign has never been designed to work opening assets across that connection, because Adobe always say, oh, it's the latency issue. So if you want to use InDesign across a network, it's got to be 10 gig, so that you're in effect tricking InDesign to say it can cope with the latency.
Yeah. And it's not just InDesign, isn't it? It's like every single Adobe product basically has the same thing where it needs to trick the latency.
But 10 gig for things like Premiere, After Effects, it's got to be. And as you know now, as you said to me last week, I'm seeing more and more things like 25 gig creeping.
Yes, exactly. So we launched a series of 25 gigabit networking cards last year, and they've just taken off. It's been utterly insane, the amount of people that want them, and I've not even got a 1 gig network at home. People are looking at but
at the moment it's always cost. When we did our first 10 gig installation in London, you couldn't get 10 gig Ethernet in any Mac. So I think you've heard of a company called Sonitech.
Vaguely, yes.
They did black boxes with 10 gig cards, so you had Thunderbolt in and out with a 10 gig Ethernet. So they're basically 10 gig, but they were tiny little mini pizza boxes. They weren't cheap, and they got really hot. But they worked a dream. So if you want a 10 gig network even for an existing infrastructure, then those Sonitech things, they've come down in price, but that's a good way to get in the 10 gig if you haven't got machinery that has got it built in.
That's fair enough. And I mean, from our side, it's kind of, we're seeing 10 gig become more and more common. We've got more devices that launch with 10 gig.
Oh, the big time.
No, it is interesting to see kind of the trends that the whole IT industry is kind of going towards. It's always striving for that next level of performance.
It is.
And
even in not like office space like this, where people have networking, one of the ones that said, "Oh, we need 10 gig." The first thing you're up against is you've got to then look at the cabling. And a lot of it's, we've got Cat5 installed. And so, okay, rip it out. It's going to. And so one client did that. They ripped out their 5 and went for Cat6. So
to be honest, my dad's an electrician, so he's constantly wiring up people's houses, and
it's mandatory now in housing, isn't it?
It's insane the amount of Cat6 he gets through. But, I mean, I won't tell anyone, but my house is still wired for Cat5. But that's another story. He'll get around to it when he finally retires.
But then with COVID and hybrid working now.
Exactly.
People, before, what's home networking? Now, everybody's home networking, or they want a house with an office.
Yeah. I was talking to someone yesterday that had a project that they've got engineers that are working from home.
Yeah.
And so they've got every single engineer's house has got a VPN to their local office.
Yeah.
And well, we have VPNs as well. And the upgrades in networking just for that is utterly insane, isn't it? And
well, my brother-in-law's he's like an air engineer for BT, and he said or Openreach, that part of it, and the amount of fibre in these 3 counties, Beds, Bucks and Herts, is just bonkers. They are constantly, every day, more and more roll out of fibre to the premises. And also, which is great, rural communities. Because a lot of my clients who were senior management before, where they would work 3 days at home or 2 days at home, that's now become the normal for everybody. But you've got to have parity with internet speed. And I think the government realised that the country needs fibre to the premises, and I think that's going to make a huge difference when we have 4 or 5 years from now, when we're having this conversation. Internet speed for the majority will be what they deserve, rather than having these pockets where the best they can get is 2 gig. Exactly.
I live out in the sticks, but we've just recently been able to upgrade to gigabit to the house, and it
makes a huge difference.
It's utterly insane. I remember the days of not quite dial up, but basically not much more.
Sadly,
monthly limits of 5 gigabytes a download. It's very different world now. But moving back towards more technology. Let's keep a bit on topic.
Yes.
Let's be honest, it's so easy to talk about other stuff. But so obviously we talked about kind of the high speed kind of storage and everything that you utilize Synology for. What kind of other solutions within the Synology kind of ecosystem do you kind of use? Do you use any of the active backup suites, or do you use
so again, going back to COVID, where we had a publishing client in Berkhamsted, we had to move 50 or 60 designers to their home. So you had the Synology back in the office, but you've got 50 or 60 designers all wanting to access that with different broadband speeds. The Synology then just couldn't cope with the demand on that. So you need something that's going to complement it. So we looked at the solutions, and business level G Drive came to the rescue. But all the companies at that time that we were dealing with, who had all their storage on premises, needed another scenario where they could offload some of the stress from the system. So some went to SharePoint, but we found Google G Drive really good for business. And it was value for money as well. Very good value for money. But again, the issue is even with 100 gig fiber, it took their data set was again 25, 27 terabytes, 7 weeks, 24 hours a day. And after a while, Google and Microsoft just dial it back. I know we've had a chat about this, but we've seen evidence of it where they just dial. It's such a huge volume of data. But that worked well. When it was up and running, the designers working from home could download their projects for that day, work on them, download or copy, I believe, from the G Drive, work on them, but then they would then put them back onto the NAS at night. So there was like a circle, and then G Drive and the Synology were syncing with each other across between the hours of sort of 8 o'clock at night and 7 in the morning. So you had data integrity, you had backups, and you had the correct version.
That is always what we always preaching, the 3-2-1 of data protection, and very, very important.
So the software side of things, about how your systems now work with cloud storage, has moved on. It doesn't matter if it's Google, Amazon, Microsoft. The only thing with Microsoft cloud storage, file naming conventions. Because you've got Mac brains, you have PC brains, and many of the time a Mac user will type of file name,
Yeah.
and it's a legal characters for Microsoft.
So yeah, you can Macs. You can have extra things like
you can put in anything you like.
Yeah.
And those disciplines, and it's too late because many of the time you've got a backlog of quite a few months or even years of data, and you'll go to Microsoft OneDrive or whatever Microsoft storage, and it'll go no, and it's then you go, oh, what do we do now?
Yeah.
G Drive and even your own cloud systems far more tolerant with naming conventions.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and well, yeah. To be honest, the Synology cloud is that's another thing entirely, isn't it? Where there's integration into the NAS with hybrid share and other bits and pieces like that is it's another product entirely. But, that's cool.
Is that right?
Yeah. What? So I've got more questions for you. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, let's go to the next one. So what kind of things do you kind of look for when you're putting together a solution? And also we kind of mentioned a couple of things, but what kind of tips do you have when, speccing out a solution or something like that? What kind of tips and things are you talking to customers about?
Okay, so speaking from the Mac perspective, so designers, video editors, sound engineers, that sort of thing, you're looking at huge file sizes.
Yeah.
And you're moving a lot of data around. All the new Macs in the last 5 years now all pretty much have SSDs.
Yeah.
So you've got to have a solution that can give them that match for speed. They don't want to drop performance going to a third-party device.
Yeah.
So with video editing and Photoshop work, video, music files, the first thing we consider is a RAID storage built with, first of all, the primary data storage has got to be SSD.
Yeah.
So you're trying to configure an SSD RAID solution, and again, your RAID is very good as far as that goes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And is that RAID F1?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how new that is, but
it predates me. That's
yeah.
all I know.
So, and that works really well.
Yeah.
Because there's SSDs write the data differently to your experts in terms of your guys who know more, but there's the way data is stored in SSDs does vary slightly to how it's written to regular spinning drives.
Yes.
So the F1 works really well. And when you're working on large files, if there was a disaster, you lose a large amount of data.
Yes.
So and Macs, PCs, all drives will fail at some point. So you almost feel like an insurance broker when you're speccing stuff. You're a risk assessor.
Yes.
You are trying to assess what your client's tolerance to risk is. Some, to be fair, we all deal with how maverick am I prepared to be with my client's data. And not from my perspective, if I was somebody if I'm working, because we all have our clients, so the designer is working for his client base, and everyone starts from a design perspective, small scale. You start to the power of one, you get successful, you take on an employee or a partner, and you grow and grow and grow. You've got this data set, and this data's grown and grown. How do you store it? And originally, Macs always had directly attached storage.
Yes.
And they have got it. And so when that filled up, they'll unplug it, put it on the shelf, buy a new one and plug it in. And the data's there, it's perfectly safe. But if you plug it in 12 months afterwards, a year after, and it doesn't work, where else is that data stored?
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
And so where NAS has come of age in terms of live work manipulation and archiving, it can do both at the same time. So the Trailfinders project was, we have a live SSD work area, but we have regular drives for archiving and hyper backup and just historic stuff for archiving. Years ago, you would have had, at least remember the retrospect tape backups.
Yeah.
People would have backed up onto tapes and then put the tape back in.
You say years ago, and people do still.
Okay.
I'm still dealing with people that are backing up to tape, and they're backing up Synology to tape. But it's there's another world entirely.
Yeah, and it was DLT, wasn't it? is it digital linear tape?
All the modern ones are LTO. I don't know what that stands for. Something linear tape, something.
Yeah, because there was DLT,
something like that. But yeah.
So I mean, but all these systems, just Synology, QNAP, you're very adaptable. It's like a Swiss Army knife. You have a device where you're thinking, what can we use this device for? And that's what we get when people talk to us. That's what we are trying to do. We're trying to find a solution that will cater for their needs.
Yes.
And complement what they've already got.
Yeah. No, that sounds good. Cool. So I get that kind of also leads into my my next question very nicely.
No problem.
Obviously, it's slightly less technical, but what are the kind of the security implications that your customers kind of see when working in the media production industry?
One of my closest clients, I can't tell you who he works for. What he does, I can give you general brushstrokes.
Yes. Yeah.
He works for a very, very big production company, and they, at the moment, I think in the UK alone, they had 80 projects, both movie and series, and it just mind-numbing. The amount of the UK now is a real hotbed for media production.
Yeah.
All the major studios, I don't think you've heard, they're opening I think it's some studios are opening a premises in Watford.
Oh,
near where the Harry Potter place is.
Yeah.
And that's going to employ 4,000 technicians and film crew.
Yeah.
So that's in terms of employment base, and it just shows you that the money's there for media and arts. And this guy who I know, he works for a production company, and he does post-production video editing, but he does set photography, and the file sizes are just bonkers. And when you're doing some of the stuff he's worked on with the special effects, and color grading is a big one for video editing in post-production, they will send him a chunk of the movie or the series to work on, but that's a fully encrypted transfer process from their servers to his Mac. He'll edit it, and he has to go back the same route.
Yeah.
Very sophisticated form of encryption, and the way it signs itself off is that when he's editing it and he has to put it back in a certain place, it's done in a way that it's almost watermarked so that it can never be taken, because the issue, it's with movie, if it's a James Bond movie for us, they don't want that getting out at any cost.
Yeah, exactly.
And I've noticed with you've now got C2 Cloud, C2 Transfer.
Yeah. Those
sort of products, again, at the moment, I'm in the infancy of getting my head around them, but those things will have a huge appeal for media production going forward.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just making sure that everything's encrypted, isn't it? And everything just can't ever fall into the
wrong hands.
Yeah.
People take for granted that their copyrights and taking care of that is absolutely essential.
Yeah, no, that's cool. And obviously, well, that's sort of leading into the next question of so what kind of things do you see kind of coming in the future, and what are the kind of where do you see the kind of the industry heading in terms of IT and storage and everything?
SSDs over the next 3 to 4 years, the capacity of those is going to have to increase, because the demand for them is just bonkers. At the moment, I think your maximum to use is just under 4 terabytes.
Yes, it is.
Already people go, I want 8. So SSD storage is going to become more and more prominent and less cost.
Yeah,
as all these things do. As you get more of something, the cost drops. Sadly, at the moment, it isn't, because
that's another discussion entirely about stock and part constraints and everything. But
I mean, I was trying to order some parts yesterday, and we deal with Tech Data as one of our suppliers, and they said, "Oh, we've got 29 of these units in stock." And I thought, "Oh, okay, I'll buy it," and tell the client, "I've got to have that." But they're talking 8 weeks. We might have it in 8 weeks in stock. So technology at the moment, trying to get the parts is just plan ahead in the short term.
Yeah. I mean, I have heard of, you know, certain manufacturers that have been quoting 500 to 600 day lead times on certain products, and you're in 2 years to get something. It's yeah, but yeah, no, there is a big movement towards larger data, isn't there? Because well, I'm not sure if you're aware, but we're bringing out our first kind of mass high density storage unit.
Okay.
So that's a 60 bay unit that will be able to do a petabyte in the head unit.
Oh my word! No, that's news to me.
Yeah,
I haven't got a client that big.
Yeah, to be honest, there's been so many people that have been interested in it because there's the demand for petabyte and above scale storage is utterly insane. And yeah, it surprised me, and I'm dealing with, you know, large volume, large capacity systems all the time. But yeah, it is.
I can't even quantify that. That's just, you know, terabytes I'm used to.
Yeah. So yeah,
it doesn't surprise me because you think all the major, you know, now how many of us have got Amazon?
Yeah,
we have so Prime, Disney Plus, Paramount are coming, Apple TV Plus, they're data centers. And it's all, you know, how quickly we take for granted. Oh, it doesn't buffer anymore. You just go to Amazon Prime on your TV and it's there. Yeah. So you think of the data that they must store. It's just mind-numbing.
I think there was a stat that I used to know that was like the largest purchaser of hard drives was Google, because they couldn't physically plug them into the systems fast enough before another one failed, and they had people running around data centers just replacing drives and stuff.
I wouldn't surprise me in this life. I mean, I've had some anecdotal things about where they build their server farms. Yeah, and you know, one apparently in America is built close to a river where they diverted the flow so they could introduce water cooling or something. Whether that's true, I just don't.
Last year, Microsoft wanted to build data centers under the sea.
They have in Scotland.
Oh yeah,
there's one in Shetland.
Yeah,
in a like a torpedo. So as a test.
Yeah, but the length that people are going to it's utterly insane, and it's only going to expand from that. So I've got a box of floppy disks in my wardrobe at home, and they're what 500 megs, if that. And you know, that's
one kilobyte was 1 meg was when they maxed out about 1 meg.
It's
and you know, years ago, all software, because I've been doing this quite a long time, things like Quark Express and Aldous PageMaker. You never even heard that, probably.
I haven't heard of that one. No.
PageMaker was the forerunner of InDesign. So all the smaller companies that produced desktop published software were eventually bought up. You had a company called Macromedia. Adobe bought them all up. So, and then Adobe's, where they were very slick, they thought, oh, that's quite good. Aldous had Freehand, then it went to Macromedia, bought Aldous. Freehand, they took the best bits, put it into Illustrator. And InDesign was a culmination of bits of PageMaker and Adobe's own I can't remember now what their design software, but InDesign was always going to be a winner when it came out, because you bought one suite of software and it gave you everything.
But it's that integration and the larger amount of data and the speed that everyone wants to access that data is going to be those are the three big things, isn't it?
I guess from our perspective, our unique selling point with the people that we deal with, we don't just deal with designers and photographers. You know, it's all industries. But our niche is that kind of sector. But because I've been very fortunate to have had that sort of background of knowledge, that's my background. So I've known Photoshop since it was version 3, Quark, all the design software. So I can relate to what clients want. So if they're trying to achieve it, I used to do that. So it gives us a unique selling point. So we understand. So when clients want support, we don't just support the NAS, the data storage, the communication. How do I do this in Photoshop? How do I do this in InDesign? So we actually have a practical skill set where we can put our minds and hands to sort of trying to fix those solutions. And it helps with knowing what kind of data we should store on the NAS device. One of in terms of how data's grown and how you manage it, one of our projects for a publishing client was they had all of their data on the NAS, but they also wanted to be able to search for photographs that were taken 12 years ago.
Yeah.
So we rolled out something from Extensys called Portfolio. Have you ever heard of that?
I think so.
It's people talk about things being digital asset management systems.
Yes.
DAMs and web DAMs. So the Synology stores the data. We have a PC or a Mac server that just talks to that all the time, builds a database, and we employed somebody. It took them 9 months keywording all of their photographs. So if you wanted lady in pink dress, it would then display. And so if you're in InDesign, there's a plugin, and you're looking for a particular image or a style of image, it will just go and grab that image. It will catalog InDesign files, fonts, images, video files. So if you're a client of a certain size, things like Portfolio and DAM solutions, Synology is brilliant for that kind of thing.
Yeah, no, that sounds good. I mean, we have similar, not quite powerful, but we have similar things like automatically built into like Synology photos and stuff.
Yes.
So you can search for a face and it will return all the photos with that face and stuff like that. But yeah, as you say, it's not quite as powerful as a full service.
Yeah.
But, yeah, that's cool. And actually, you kind of linked to that is what kind of things would you like to see from Synology kind of in the future? In terms of like either features or.
Look, I've been thinking about this since we first started speaking. A lot of this, you've got very, very good integration on the Microsoft side, and you have some tools and integrations from the Apple side.
Yeah,
it may not be your bag, but I can see there could be a potential niche of whether you think having some kind of cloud-based MDM. So where you have multiple device managers. So I don't know if you Jamf do it, Adigy do. So you have, is it taking the Synology too much towards a server role?
Yeah.
And maybe too much out of your sort of key marketplace and leave the others. It's a tough call, but that there's useful.
That does sound very interesting, to be honest. Yeah, I might have to have a chat with HQ about that one.
So
see what they say.
It may be too left field for what you're trying to do.
Yeah,
because you also then have to think, right, we've got to then deal more directly with Apple. But in terms of storage and what it does, no, the features you've got are very, very good.
Yeah.
The only thing that would be very useful is Mac client to Synology backup solutions.
Yes. So on that, we do have that coming. I believe I don't know the confirmed date off the top of my head, but we do know that is coming. So it'll be under the active backup for business package.
Perfect.
So we'll have that. At the moment we cover PC and Linux PCs.
You do,
and Mac is the last one, and that is definitely coming.
Perfect. Yeah, that would be very good.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of finished all of my questions.
Okay.
So thank you very much, Phil. It's been really interesting, and hope people have been able to learn some bits and pieces. And if you ever need anything, please do get in contact. And likewise, if you ever need anything from Phil, we can always help pass you on. So
thank you.
Just help make you busier.
So
So yes, thank you all very much for watching. Please do keep an eye on our spot page for all the webinars coming up. And we look forward to seeing you in the next one.